The Iconian invasion. The vast expanse of space had long been a realm of wonder and terror for the countless civilizations that called the Milky Way home. But in the year 2157, a new horror emerged from the depths of the cosmos. The Iconian Empire. Like a plague of locusts, their ships of obsidian and emerald cut through the star systems, leaving only ashes and despair in their wake. The Iconians were a species bred for war, their bodies a fusion of organic tissue and advanced cybernetics. Their faces were nightmarish visages of sharp angles and glowing green eyes, devoid of mercy or compassion. For centuries, they had carved a bloody path through the galaxy, subjugating or annihilating any species that stood in their way. Humanity, still in its infancy as a spacefaring civilization, had only recently taken its first tentative steps beyond the Sol system. Colonies on Mars and Europa thrived, and the first interstellar outposts had been established in nearby star systems. It was an era of hope and exploration, with mankind looking to the stars with wonder rather than fear. That all changed on a quiet Tuesday morning when the first Iconian warship appeared on the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's flagship, as the reports flooded in. Her dark eyes narrowed as she watched the holographic display, showing the massive alien vessel effortlessly tearing through the outer system's defense platforms. "Status report," she barked, her voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at her gut. Lieutenant Commander Jared Chen's fingers danced across his console. "The alien ship has destroyed our outposts on Titan and Io. It's heading straight for Earth, Admiral. Our weapons barely scratch its shields." Rodriguez gritted her teeth. Humanity had never faced a threat like this before. "All ships, form up on the Defiant. We make our stand at Mars. May God have mercy on our souls." The battle that followed would be forever etched in human history as the Day of Fire. The combined might of Earth's fleet, nearly 200 ships strong, threw everything they had at the single Iconian warship. For hours, the void between Earth and Mars blazed with weapon fire and explosions. In the end, it wasn't enough. The Iconian ship, though damaged, continued its relentless advance. It was only when it reached Earth's orbit, poised to rain death upon the billions below, that it finally opened a communication channel. The being that appeared on the view screen was the stuff of nightmares. Its face was a mesh of metal and flesh, with pulsing green veins that seemed to writhe beneath translucent skin. When it spoke, its voice was a grating metallic rasp that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. "Humans," it said, the word dripping with disdain. "Your species has been judged and found wanting. Submit to Iconian rule or face extinction. You have one planetary rotation to decide." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge of the Defiant in stunned silence. Admiral Rodriguez looked around at her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "We will never submit," she said quietly, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Humanity bows to no one. If they want our world, they'll have to pry it from our cold, dead hands." In the days that followed, Earth's governments united as never before. The Iconian threat loomed large, but humanity's spirit proved indomitable. As news spread of similar invasions in other parts of the galaxy, a grim resolve settled over the human race. Factories were retooled for wartime production. Scientists worked around the clock to reverse engineer Iconian technology from the scant data gathered during the battle. Every able-bodied person was called upon to contribute to the war effort. But it wasn't enough. The Iconians returned in force, their fleet darkening the skies above every human world. The battles that followed were brutal and one-sided. Human colonies fell one by one, their inhabitants either slaughtered or enslaved. On New Terra, the furthest human colony, a young girl named Lily Chen watched the sky turn green as Iconian weapons rained down upon her home. Her father, a colonial marine, hugged her tight as they huddled in a makeshift bunker. "Don't be afraid, sweetheart," he whispered, even as the ground shook with each impact. Humanity isn't done yet. We'll find a way. We always do. Lily nodded, clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. She wanted to believe her father, but the fear in his eyes told a different story. Back on Earth, Admiral Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform scorched and her face haggard from weeks of constant battle. "We can't win this war conventionally," she said, her voice hoarse. "The Iconians are too advanced, too numerous. But we've discovered something. A weakness." She activated a holographic display, showing the intricate inner workings of an Iconian warrior. Their cybernetic implants are vulnerable to a specific type of electromagnetic pulse. If we can develop a weapon to exploit this weakness, we might have a chance. The council members murmured among themselves, a spark of hope igniting in their eyes for the first time since the invasion began. "How long will it take to develop such a weapon?" asked the council president. Rodriguez's face hardened. "Too long, if we try to protect everyone. We need to consolidate our forces, abandon our outer colonies. It's the only way to buy enough time." The silence that followed was deafening. They all knew what this meant. Billions of human lives sacrificed for a slim chance at victory. Finally, the president nodded, tears in his eyes. "Do what must be done, Admiral. May history forgive us." As the orders went out, a great exodus began. Millions fled the outer colonies, cramming into whatever ships were available. But for every person saved, countless others were left behind to face the Iconian onslaught. On New Terra, Lily Chen and her father never made it to the evacuation ships. They huddled together in their bunker, listening to the sounds of destruction above. As the bunker door finally gave way, Lily's father stood tall, facing the Iconian warriors with defiance in his eyes. "You may take our lives," he shouted, "but you'll never break our spirit." The last thing Lily saw before darkness claimed her was the green flash of an Iconian weapon. As news of the atrocities spread, a fire ignited in the hearts of every human. The Iconians had made a grave mistake. They had pushed humanity to the brink, awakening a primal fury that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The war for survival had begun, and humanity would show the Iconians why it was a terrible mistake to underestimate the human spirit. The turning point. The human spirit, resilient as it was, found itself tested to its very limits in the months that followed the initial Iconian invasion. Earth had become a fortress world, its surface scarred by orbital bombardments and desperate battles. The remnants of humanity's once proud fleets fought a guerrilla war among the asteroids and gas giants of the solar system, striking at Iconian supply lines before fading back into the void. But it was on a small, unremarkable colony world named Haven that the tide of war would begin to turn. Haven was a harsh world of windswept plains and towering mesas, its small population of farmers and miners eking out a living on the very edge of human-controlled space. It was here that Dr. Samantha Wells, a brilliant xenobiologist, had made a discovery that could change everything. In a secret underground lab, protected by layers of rock and stealth technology, Dr. Wells stood before a holographic display, her eyes alight with excitement and fear. "It's working," she whispered, barely daring to believe it. "The EMP modulation is disrupting the Iconian cybernetics at a cellular level." Her assistant, a young engineer named Raj Patel, grinned broadly. "We did it, Sam. We actually did it." Their celebration was cut short by the blaring of alarms. Above ground, the colony's meager defenses came to life as a lone Iconian scout ship dropped out of hyperspace. In the colony's command center, Governor Maria Hernandez watched the approaching ship with grim determination. "Evacuate the civilians to the shelters," she ordered. "And get me Dr. Wells. We need that weapon now." As the colonists scrambled for safety, a squad of colonial militia took up defensive positions around the lab entrance. Among them was Jack Chen, his face a mask of determination, as he checked his rifle one last time. The Iconian ship landed on the outskirts of the colony, disgorging a platoon of cybernetic warriors. Their metallic feet clanked against the rocky ground as they advanced, energy weapons at the ready. In the lab, Dr. Wells and Raj worked feverishly to integrate their prototype EMP device into the colony's defense grid. Just a few more minutes, Wells muttered, her fingers flying over the controls. Above ground, the battle had begun in earnest. The militia fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Iconian energy beams cut through makeshift barricades, vaporizing brave defenders where they stood. Jack Chen gritted his teeth as he fired burst after burst at the advancing aliens. He had lost his daughter Lily on Nuterra, and the pain of her loss fueled his every action. "Come on, you bastards," he snarled. "I've got something special for you." As the Iconians breached the outer defenses, a group of civilians broke cover, running in panic towards the perceived safety of the hills. Among them was a young boy, no more than 7 years old, clutching a battered stuffed animal. Time seemed to slow as Jack watched in horror. An Iconian warrior turned, its inhuman eyes fixing on the fleeing child. Without hesitation, it raised its weapon and fired. The green energy beam struck the boy square in the chest. For a moment, he stood there, a look of confusion on his young face. Then he crumpled to the ground, his stuffed animal falling from lifeless fingers. A primal scream tore from Jack's throat, echoed by every human witness to the atrocity. In that moment, something fundamental changed in the human psyche. The fear that had gripped them since the invasion began burned away, replaced by a white-hot rage. Jack charged forward, heedless of the energy beams sizzling past him. He slammed into the Iconian warrior with the force of a freight train, his combat knife finding gaps in the alien armor that no one had thought possible. As Jack grappled with the Iconian, Dr. Wells' voice crackled over the colony's comm system. "The weapon is ready. All humans, shield your eyes." A pulse of invisible energy radiated out from the colony's defense towers. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the Iconian warriors began to falter. Their movements became jerky and uncoordinated as their cybernetic implants misfired. Jack watched in grim satisfaction as the Iconian he had been fighting collapsed, its green eyes flickering and dying. All around the battlefield, the scene was repeated as the invincible warriors suddenly found themselves vulnerable. The militia, bolstered by their unexpected advantage, pressed forward. Energy rifles that had once been ineffective now found weak points in malfunctioning Iconian armor. Within minutes, the tide of battle had turned completely. As the last Iconian fell, a cheer went up from the human defenders. But it was a bittersweet victory, tempered by the cost in innocent lives. Governor Hernandez stood amidst the aftermath, her face a mixture of triumph and sorrow. "Get me a secure line to Earth Command," she ordered. "They need to know what happened here." News of Haven's victory spread like wildfire through the remnants of human space. For the first time since the invasion began, hope blossomed in the hearts of billions. If one small colony could defeat an Iconian force, what might humanity achieve if it brought its full strength to bear? On Earth, Admiral Rodriguez listened to Governor Hernandez's report with growing excitement. "This changes everything," she said, turning to her staff. "We need to mass-produce Dr. Wells' device immediately. And more than that, we need to take the fight to the Iconians." In the days that followed, a fire seemed to ignite in the human spirit. The story of Haven, and particularly the image of the fallen child, became a rallying cry. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers, each burning with the desire to avenge their fallen and protect their future. Dr. Wells found herself whisked away to Earth, tasked with overseeing the production of what was now being called the Haven device. But even as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. "The Iconians will adapt," she warned Admiral Rodriguez during a briefing. "This weapon gives us an advantage, but we can't rely on it forever." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Agreed. That's why we're not just going to defend anymore. We're taking the fight to them, Doctor. And we're going to need every bit of human ingenuity to do it. As production of the Haven device ramped up, a new sense of purpose swept through humanity. Ships were refitted, armies were trained, and in hidden labs across human space, scientists worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of Iconian technology. The Iconians had awakened a sleeping giant. In their arrogance, they had believed humanity to be weak, easily cowed. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. As Jack Chen boarded a transport bound for the new front lines, he paused to look back at the graves of Haven's fallen. His hand tightened on his rifle as he made a silent vow. "We're coming for you," he whispered, "and may God have mercy on your souls, because we won't." The turning point had come. Now, the real war was about to begin. Humanity strikes back. The tide of war shifted dramatically in the months following the Battle of Haven. Humanity, once on the brink of extinction, now stood united and resolute. The Haven device, mass-produced and distributed throughout human space, became the great equalizer in a conflict that had seemed hopelessly one-sided. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the newly christened UES Vengeance, the most advanced warship humanity had ever produced. Its sleek hull bristled with weapons, a fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Iconian technology. "Status report," she commanded, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of a wormhole opening before them. Lieutenant Commander Chen, his face bearing new scars from the Battle of Haven, responded crisply. "All systems nominal. Admiral, the fleet is in formation and ready for jump." Rodriguez nodded, a grim smile playing on her lips. "Then let's introduce the Iconians to a little human hospitality. All ships, commence Operation Firestorm." The human fleet, over 1,000 ships strong, surged forward into the wormhole. Their destination, the Iconian fortress world of Terminus Prime. As the fleet emerged from the wormhole, alarms blared across Terminus Prime. The Iconians, caught completely off guard, scrambled to mount a defense. But humanity had learned from its earlier defeats, and this time, they had the element of surprise. "All ships, deploy Haven devices and engage at will," Rodriguez ordered. The space around Terminus Prime lit up with electromagnetic pulses, crippling Iconian ships before they could even power up their weapons. On the planet's surface, Jack Chen led a company of elite shock troopers in a daring assault on the main Iconian command center. Armed with EMP grenades and plasma rifles, they tore through the once invincible Iconian warriors like a hot knife through butter. "Remember Haven," Jack roared as he gunned down an Iconian officer. His troops echoed the cry, their voices filled with righteous fury. In orbit, the Vengeance engaged the Iconian flagship in a titanic duel. Admiral Rodriguez gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Targeting solutions locked," reported the weapons officer. "Haven device is powered and ready." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. Fire. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the Vengeance, enveloping the Iconian flagship. Its lights flickered and died, leaving it a drifting hulk in space. "All ships, concentrate fire on the disabled vessel," Rodriguez commanded. "Let's send these bastards a message they won't forget." The human fleet obliged, their combined firepower reducing the once mighty Iconian ship to scattered atoms. On the ground, Jack and his team fought their way to the heart of the Iconian command center. They found themselves face to face with the planetary governor, a towering cyborg encased in gleaming black armor. "You dare," the governor snarled, his voice a mechanical rasp. "You insignificant creatures dare to challenge the might of the Iconian Empire." Jack's response was simple and to the point. He raised his rifle and fired, the EMP-enhanced rounds tearing through the governor's defenses. As the Iconian leader fell, Jack activated his comm. "Command center secured. Terminus Prime is ours." The cheer that went up from the human forces could be heard even in space. Terminus Prime, once an impregnable fortress of the Iconian Empire, had fallen in less than a day. News of the victory spread rapidly through both human and Iconian space. For the humans, it was a moment of triumph, a vindication of their sacrifices, and a beacon of hope for the future. For the Iconians, it was a shocking wake-up call. The prey had suddenly become the predator. In the weeks that followed, humanity pressed its advantage. Strike teams led by heroes like Jack Chen hit Iconian outposts across the galaxy, liberating enslaved populations and gathering crucial intelligence. Dr. Samantha Wells, working tirelessly in her lab on Earth, made breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding Iconian technology. "We're not just matching them anymore," she reported to Admiral Rodriguez. "In some areas, we're surpassing them." But the war was far from over. The Iconian Empire, though staggered, was vast and ancient. They began to adapt to the Haven device, developing countermeasures that made each subsequent battle harder than the last. In response, humanity innovated. New weapons were developed, tactics evolved, and a new generation of soldiers, hardened by war and driven by an unquenchable desire for justice, rose to meet the challenge. The Galactic Council, long cowed by Iconian might, began to take notice. Species that had suffered under Iconian rule for centuries saw in humanity a spark of hope. Tentative alliances were formed, and soon, human fleets found themselves fighting alongside alien allies against their common foe. Admiral Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform adorned with new medals, her face etched with the weight of command. "We've won significant victories," she reported, "but the Iconians are far from defeated. They're falling back, consolidating their forces around their core worlds. The next phase of the war will be the hardest yet." The council members nodded gravely. They had all seen the casualty reports, had all felt the cost of this war in blood and resources. "What do you need, Admiral?" asked the council president. Rodriguez's response was immediate. "Everything. Every ship we can build, every soldier we can train, every scrap of technology we can develop. The Iconians thought they could break us. Instead, they forged us into something stronger than they could have ever imagined. It's time we show them exactly what humanity is capable of." As the council deliberated, Jack Chen stood at the window of a hospital room on Earth. His body was covered in fresh bandages, but his eyes were clear and determined as he looked out at the bustling activity of the shipyards in orbit. A nurse approached, carrying a bundle in her arms. "Would you like to hold her?" she asked softly. Jack turned, his face softening as he gently took the newborn baby girl. She was one of thousands born to surrogate mothers, her biological parents casualties of the war. "Hello, little one," he whispered, feeling the surge of protectiveness. "I promise you, we're going to win this war. We're going to build a galaxy where you can grow up free and safe." As if in response, the baby gurgled and grasped his finger with surprising strength. In that moment, Jack understood with perfect clarity what they were fighting for. It wasn't just about vengeance or survival anymore. It was about securing a future for the next generation, a future free from the shadow of Iconian tyranny. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity, once fighting desperately for survival, now stood poised to reshape the very face of the galaxy. The Iconians had started this war, but humanity was determined to end it, once and for all. The Great Push. 5 years into the war, the galaxy had become a crucible of conflict. The initial shock of humanity's resurgence had worn off, and the Iconian Empire had rallied its vast resources for a protracted struggle. But humanity, bolstered by its allies, and driven by an indomitable will, refused to relent. Admiral Elena Rodriguez, her hair now streaked with gray, stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Red indicators showed Iconian strongholds, while blue marked the territories liberated by the human-led alliance. "The Iconians have fallen back to their core systems," she explained to the assembled War Council. "They've fortified these worlds beyond anything we've encountered so far. This is where they'll make their final stand." Dr. Samantha Wells, now head of the United Earth Science Division, stepped forward. "We've made a breakthrough in wormhole technology," she announced. "We can open stable corridors directly into the heart of Iconian space." A murmur of excitement ran through the council. This could be the key to ending the war. "There's a catch," Wells continued, her face grim. "The energy requirements are enormous. We'll only be able to keep the wormholes open for a limited time. Once we commit to this attack, there's no turning back." Jack Chen, now a general and commander of the elite Havoc Squad, spoke up. "My team is ready. We'll lead the ground assault on the Iconian throne world itself." Rodriguez nodded, her eyes scanning the determined faces around her. "Then it's decided. We launch Operation Nemesis in 48 hours. May God be with us all." As the council dispersed, Jack found himself approached by a young lieutenant. "Sir," she said, saluting crisply, "I'm Sarah Chen. On your daughter." Jack's eyes widened in shock. "Lily? But I thought you died on Nuterra." Sarah shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I was rescued by resistance fighters. I've spent years trying to find you." For a moment, the hardened warrior facade crumbled, and Jack pulled his daughter into a tight embrace. "I never gave up hope," he whispered. As father and daughter reconnected, preparations for the final assault reached a fever pitch across human space. Ships were armed and armored. Troops were briefed, and in laboratories across a dozen worlds, scientists worked tirelessly to perfect weapons that might turn the tide. The day of the attack dawned with an eerie calm. In orbit around Earth, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history waited for the signal. Ships from 100 alien races flew alongside human vessels, all united in their determination to end Iconian tyranny once and for all. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, her flagship now scared by countless battles. "All ships, prepare for wormhole jump," she ordered, her voice steady. "Remember why we fight. For our homes, for our families, for the future of every free being in this galaxy. Today we end this war." With a flash of energy that lit up the solar system, the wormholes opened. The Allied fleet surged forward, plunging into the heart of enemy territory. They emerged in orbit around Iconus Prime, the throne world of the Empire. The space around the planet was black with enemy ships, a last desperate defense by a regime that knew its time was ending. "All ships, deploy Haven devices and engage," Rodriguez commanded. The space around Iconus Prime erupted in apocalyptic fury as the two massive fleets clashed. On the planet's surface, Jack Chen led Havoc Squad in a daring drop directly onto the Imperial Palace. As their drop pods streaked through the atmosphere, Jack turned to his daughter. "Stay close," he said. "We're making history today." They landed hard, immediately engaging in brutal close-quarters combat with the Imperial Guard. The Iconians fought with the desperation of a cornered animal, but Havoc Squad was unstoppable. As they fought their way deeper into the palace, Dr. Wells' voice came over the comm. "General Chen, we've located the Emperor. He's in a hidden bunker beneath the throne room. But be careful, our sensors are picking up strange energy readings." Jack nodded grimly. "Understood. We're on it." The squad battled through waves of elite guards, their advanced armor and weapons proving more than a match for even the best the Iconians could field. Finally, they breached the bunker door. Inside, they found not the cowering leader they expected, but a scene out of nightmare. The Iconian Emperor stood at the center of a pulsing energy field, his body twisted and enlarged by unholy cybernetic enhancements. "Foolish humans," the Emperor's voice boomed, shaking the very foundations of the bunker. "You think you've won. I am beyond your petty weapons now. I am the Iconians' final evolution." With terrifying speed, the Emperor lashed out, energy tendrils sweeping Havoc Squad off their feet. Jack watched in horror as his soldiers were tossed about like ragdolls. "Dad!" Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. She tossed him a strange device, one of Dr. Wells' latest creations. "Use this." Jack caught the device and activated it without hesitation. A field of swirling energy enveloped him, and suddenly he could move at the Emperor's speed. What followed was a battle that would be etched into the annals of galactic history. Man against monster, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Jack's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge the Emperor's attacks, striking back with precision and fury. But the Emperor was powerful, drawing energy from some infernal source to heal his wounds. The battle raged on, with neither side able to gain the upper hand. In orbit, the situation was equally dire. Despite their initial success, the Allied fleet found itself hard-pressed by waves of Iconian reinforcements. Admiral Rodriguez watched with growing concern as ship after ship winked out of existence on her tactical display. "We can't hold them much longer," her XO reported grimly. Rodriguez's jaw set in determination. "We hold as long as we must. General Chen will come through. He has to." Back in the bunker, Jack was reaching his limits. The energy field around him flickered, his movements slowing. The Emperor loomed over him, a cruel smile on his twisted face. "Your species was doomed from the start," the Emperor gloated. "Iconian dominion is inevitable." At that moment, Sarah Chen stepped forward, her face set in grim determination. "No," she said, her voice strong. "Humanity will never submit." She raised her weapon and fired, not at the Emperor, but at the complex machinery behind him. The shot struck true, and suddenly the energy feeding the Emperor's enhancements cut out. Jack saw his opportunity and took it. With the last of his strength, he lunged forward, driving his combat knife deep into the Emperor's chest. The tyrant's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. "Impossible," he gasped, before collapsing to the ground. As the Emperor fell, a psychic shockwave seemed to ripple through Iconian forces everywhere. In orbit, Rodriguez watched in amazement as enemy ships suddenly lost cohesion, their formations breaking apart. "Push forward," she ordered, seizing the moment. "Victory is within our grasp." On the planet's surface, Jack staggered to his feet, supported by his daughter. "It's over," he said, his voice hoarse. "We've won." As Havoc Squad secured the bunker, the news spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, Iconian forces laid down their arms, their will to fight evaporating with the death of their leader. The Great Push had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The Iconian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, had fallen in a single decisive stroke. But as the cheers of victory rose from 1,000 worlds, those who had led the fight knew that the real work was just beginning. The galaxy lay in ruins, countless species had been devastated, and the power vacuum left by the Iconians threatened to plunge everything back into chaos. Humanity had won the war. Now, they would have to win the peace. A new galactic order. The fall of the Iconian Empire sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Centuries of oppression had come to an abrupt end, leaving countless worlds struggling to find their place in this new era of freedom. In the power vacuum left behind, humanity found itself thrust into a role it had never anticipated, that of galactic peacekeeper and rebuilder. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, her weathered face a testament to the long years of war. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, their expressions a mix of hope and uncertainty. "The Iconians have fallen," Rodriguez began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "But our work is far from over. We stand at a crossroads. We can either succumb to chaos and retribution, or we can forge a new path, one of cooperation, reconstruction, and lasting peace." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many of these species had suffered for generations under Iconian rule. The desire for revenge ran deep. A Thraxian delegate, his insectoid features twisted in anger, stood. "Easy for humans to preach peace. You haven't endured centuries of slavery." Before Rodriguez could respond, Jack Chen stepped forward. His uniform was adorned with the highest honors humanity could bestow, but his eyes held a deep weariness. "I've seen the cost of vengeance firsthand," he said, his voice quiet but intense. "It's a path that leads only to more suffering. We have a chance here, a chance to break the cycle of violence that has plagued this galaxy for too long." As the debate raged on, Dr. Samantha Wells worked tirelessly in her lab on Earth. The end of the war had not meant an end to her research. If anything, it had only intensified. "We're making breakthroughs daily," she reported to the United Earth Council. "Iconian technology, combined with innovations from our alien allies, is opening up possibilities we never dreamed of. Faster than light travel, terraforming, even the manipulation of fundamental forces. It's all within our grasp. But with great power came great responsibility." The council debated long into the night about how to use these new technologies. The temptation to hoard them, to use them to establish human dominance, was strong. In the end, it was Sarah Chen who tipped the balance. Now a respected diplomat, she addressed the council with passion. "We didn't fight this war to become the new Iconians," she argued. "We fought for freedom, not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings. If we withhold these advancements, we're no better than those we overthrew." Her words struck a chord. The council voted unanimously to share their technological discoveries with the galactic community, under the condition that they be used for peaceful purposes only. As the years passed, the galaxy began to heal. Planets devastated by Iconian strip mining were restored through advanced terraforming techniques. Species on the brink of extinction were brought back from the edge, their populations carefully nurtured on new homeworlds. Humanity, once a newcomer to the galactic stage, now found itself in a leadership role. Human diplomats mediated disputes between alien races. Human scientists collaborated with beings from across the cosmos, pushing the boundaries of knowledge ever further. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Remnants of the Iconian forces, led by hardline commanders who refused to accept defeat, continued to wage a guerrilla war from hidden bases. Pirate fleets, emboldened by the power vacuum, preyed on vulnerable colonies. Jack Chen, though officially retired, found himself called back into service time, and again to deal with these threats. Each time, he hoped it would be the last. Each time, he was proven wrong. "When does it end?" he asked Rodriguez one night, as they stood on the observation deck of the UES Peacekeeper. Below them, a once ravaged world bloomed with new life, the result of years of careful rehabilitation. Rodriguez smiled, though her eyes held a hint of sadness. "It doesn't, old friend. Peace isn't a destination. It's a journey, one we have to recommit to every single day." As the decades rolled by, the scars of war slowly faded. A new generation arose, children born into a galaxy of possibilities, free from the shadow of Iconian oppression. Among them were humans, Thraxians, and 100 other species, all working and learning side by side. On the 100th anniversary of the Iconian Empire's fall, a great celebration was held on Earth. Dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered to commemorate the occasion. Jack Chen, now well into his second century thanks to life-extending technologies, stood at the podium. Beside him was his daughter Sarah, and her daughter after her, 3 generations that had seen humanity's journey from near extinction to galactic leadership. A century ago, Jack began, his voice still strong despite his years. "We faced annihilation. The Iconians believed they could break us, that humanity would crumble before their might. They were wrong." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd. A living tapestry of diverse species, all united in peace. But our greatest victory wasn't on the battlefield. It was in what came after. We could have become conquerors ourselves. Instead, we chose a harder path, the path of cooperation, of mutual understanding, of lifting up those around us. As Jack spoke, news came in from the farthest reaches of explored space. A probe had made first contact with a new spacefaring civilization. The galaxy held its breath, wondering how these newcomers would be received. The answer came swiftly. A diplomatic mission was assembled, led by none other than Jack's great-granddaughter. They would go not as conquerors or colonizers, but as friends, offering knowledge, assistance, and a hand in friendship. As the mission prepared to depart, Jack watched from his home on Mars, a smile on his aged face. The cycle was beginning anew. But this time, it would start with an offer of peace, not a declaration of war. The Iconian invasion had nearly spelled the end for humanity. Instead, it had forged them into something greater than they ever could have imagined. Guardians not just of Earth, but of a galaxy teeming with life and possibility. As the diplomatic ship winked out of existence, bound for unknown adventures, Jack Chen closed his eyes. He thought of all those who had sacrificed to make this moment possible, the fallen heroes, the nameless billions who had endured occupation and fought for freedom. "We remembered," he whispered, "and we built something worthy of your sacrifice." In the vast expanse of space, countless stars twinkled, and around many of them, life flourished, free and unafraid. The long night of Iconian terror had passed. A new dawn had broken for the galaxy, and humanity stood ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. The end of one story, the beginning of countless more.